What's good, G-Life? Now, in today's episode, we shall be finishing off the rest of the barrios right here in the area of Palmdale. I know in the other video, people had mentioned that I forgot this neighborhood and that neighborhood, but if you pay attention to the title, it says part 1. So obviously, I wasn't able to make them all fit in one video, but the video would have been way too long. So we shall be finishing the rest of the barrios in Palmdale because Palmdale does have that many neighborhoods. So with no further ado, let's get into it. I keep it G like a G is supposed to. I'm from the old school, no one comes close to. Post it up and I do what I want to. Post it up and I do what I want to. I keep it G like a G is supposed to. I'm from the old school, no one comes close to. Post it up and I do what I want to. Post it up and I do what I want to. I keep it true and I mean every last word. I was fooled by the truth, real gangsters. White tee creased up with a strap too. I'm from the bottom where we earn all our tattoos. Now, to find the first neighborhood on the list, we actually have to be traveling down to the east side of Palmdale. One of the common patterns that you'll see with a lot of these neighborhoods is that a lot of them, reside on the east side of Palmdale and claim east side, Palmdale, right, as their turf. It seems like the east side is the most chaotic side and where it goes down. You know what I mean? No different right here. Now, to be more exact, the neighborhood that calls this place home is known as the Vario MWC. MWC translating to Most Wanted Criminals. Now, Most Wanted Criminals was actually a tag banging crew that was roughly around the 90s. Didn't establish to become a neighborhood until the mid 2000s. 2008. Por ahí. And I remember this tag banging crew from the 818, right? From the Valle. They were roughly around the Pacoima, Nordoff, North Hills type area, right? Arleta, all that area. I remember these individuals, getting hit up and hitting up people, from this, I even used to work with an individual who was from MWC, cool individual. So these individuals have been around, you know what I mean? They were doing their thing, but they were just tag bangers, But then they had homies that moved down here to Palmdale and obviously set up shop, planted their flag, and, called this place their home, right? And established themselves as a well-known barrio within this area, But like I said, it wasn't just, isolated to this area. You have them in Lancaster and, like I said, in the 818, right? So as a whole, they're a lot more larger. But here in Palmdale, at least from what I was told, is they're roughly around like 50-ish members, right? But as a whole, they're more than that. To their barrio. And like I said, it may not be as old school as some of these other gangs around this area, but these guys handle business, they're known. You definitely see the activity by these individuals. They ain't playing. Now, their turf is essentially everything that's from Palmdale Boulevard. Palmdale Boulevard, the turf extends all the way to 25th to Avenue R. Avenue R, their turf heads all the way to 30th, back around. Everything in the middle is considered their barrio. Everything that's around the McAdams Park, right? The McAdam Park area is what they call home, right? The McAdam boys, as you see them, being referenced as. So this is, everything that's, their barrio, what they call their domain. And like I said, real individuals that do real things and hold it down for the MWC and in the east side of Palmdale, bro. Now, another barrio that's in this area that's similar to the MWC, as in they were once a tag banging crew that became a neighborhood, is known as the Varro SLS. SLS translating to Straight Local Soldiers. Straight Local Soldiers was roughly more of a smaller tag banging crew, right? But nonetheless had real individuals that handle their scandal, These guys were really doing things, right? And essentially their turf was everything that was from 3rd Street. 3rd Street, their territory went all the way towards Rancho Vista Boulevard. Rancho Vista Boulevard, their turf extended all the way to Avenue P5 and back around. Everything in the middle is considered their barrio, throughout Carlside Avenue, right? So what's Avenue P1, Avenue P3, Avenue P4, Avenue P5, all of that is what's considered, the straight local soldados, territory. And like I said, they're not as old school because they were roughly only around since the later 90s, only up to like about 40 to 50 heads. But nonetheless, like I said, a real barrio that does real things right here, and hold it down for the straight local soldados right there, putting it down and putting theirs on the map. Now, another barrio that calls, the Palmdale area home, but it's just not here in Palmdale. And as a matter of fact, this is not even where they originated from, right? Is the Varro DSM. DSM translating to Varro Desmadrosos, don't stop mobbing. Used to be a tag, they were taggers that became tag bangers that became a barrio, right? And they started in the A1A Valle, roughly around the Van Nuys area, right? And like I said, this crew right here is an old school crew, bro. It's been around already for a long time, bro. I would say later 80s, early 90s when this neighborhood was established, right? Was as a crew, right? And then it worked its way up, because like I said, in that time frame, you gotta picture the times were chaotic, right? Especially for taggers, certain neighborhoods, pressing them and trying to recruit them or punk on them. So these crews had to defend themselves, right? They're just not gonna let themselves. So some of these crews, started arming themselves and fighting back, bro. They ain't no suckers. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, they put in their work and they did their thing right there. Like I said, and it was a pretty large, tag banging crew at the time, right? So, like I said, it has its reputations to it, right? And then they became a neighborhood, and had members that moved out here to Palmdale and planted their flag, and did their thing. But like I said, they're just not located here in Palmdale because they're also in the A1A. It's not like they just all moved over here. Like they have territory in both locations. And I even heard in out of the state of California, they also have a clica up in Oregon, right? From what I was told. So, like I said, as a whole, this barrio is a lot more larger, but they have their members scattered, right? So they just, roam around. Where they roam, they control. You know what I mean? And this barrio has nothing to do with the other Desmadroso neighborhood. The LRD is just a Desmadroso part that they have, in common to them, right? But this one is just Desmadrosos. And like I said, real barrio that's been doing real things for a while already, holding it down, and still putting theirs on the map. Now, another barrio similar to the DSM, who calls this place home, but is not originally a Palmdale neighborhood, is actually known as the Vario Southside CKS. CKS translating to Vario Southside Crooks. The Crooks neighborhood is actually a barrio that was established in the 818 Valle, roughly around the later 80s, early 90s when the neighborhood was established. A real barrio right there in Van Nuys on Sherman Way, right? They were roughly always a small neighborhood, but nonetheless had individuals that did their thing. Not only just in Van Nuys, but you were able to find them also, by North Hills, Panorama, and that area, in the Valle. So that's where their neighborhood originated at, right? But then they had homies that moved out here to the Palmdale area, just like, similar to, a bunch of other barrios, planted their flags, set up shop, and established themselves right there. Already in the outskirts of Palmdale, heading in toward Lancaster, where this neighborhood, that does their thing, right? So that's why you could find their activities also in the Lancaster area, because they do tend to feud with neighborhoods out there in Lancaster, right? But also in Palmdale, right? But they originally, claimed the area of Palmdale, right? And also the Valle. And this barrio as a whole, they're a lot more larger, right? Because they have homies just scattered and spread out to different locations, But at least in the Palmdale area, from what I was told, is they're roughly around, 20 to 30 members. But as a whole, like I said, they're a lot more larger. And yes, this is, like I said, a real barrio, because I was seeing people try to say that it wasn't. It was just a crew or they're just claiming. No. This was a real neighborhood whose roots already date back longer than what people know about in the 661 area, because that's not where they originated from, right? And like I said, this barrio has nothing to do with the other crooks neighborhoods that are out there. I did a separate video on that if you guys want to go check that out, right? Because there's a lot of barrios that use a crook title to it. But, that's the only thing they have in common. This is CKS and still represents for theirs. Now, another barrio that you can find right here in the east side of Palmdale, because the east side of Palmdale, like I said, is an area that just cracks with so many different barrios, just secluded to one area. Obviously, that's how you get all the tensions and beefs and chaos, that plagues the area, right? Because, obviously neighborhoods are territorial, so people are going to have their issues. So another barrio that you were able to find or are able to find right here in the action is the Vario DMC. Varro DMC is a neighborhood that has been right here in Palmdale since the 90s that it was established, right? And it translates to deadly-minded criminals. Deadly-minded criminals, yes, they do claim the Palmdale area right here, right? And essentially their territory is everything that's from Palmdale Boulevard all the way to 30th all the way to Avenue R to 35th Street, and back around. Everything in the middle and throughout 30th is considered their neighborhood, right? And that's why you see, 30th Street hit up in their graffiti and stuff like that, right? That they claim that area because that's their domain, the dojo. And this neighborhood, in a sense, isn't a large Varro, right? Because it was a tech bang crew that became a neighborhood and have no connections to the rest of the deadly-minded neighborhoods that are out there. Because I know that there is several. The deadly-minded part is the only thing they have in common because there's, different, deadly-minded family, deadly minds, deadly-minded criminals. You know what I mean? So you have, they do have their differences to them. But this Vario is a real neighborhood that, is right here, represents for theirs, feuding with surrounding neighborhoods. Because like I said, it does, crack off right here. But they're still right there and continue to hold it down for theirs. Now, another Vario that's native to the Palmdale area, meaning that is where they started, this is their birthplace, the place they call home, is the Varro STS, not to be confused with the Asian neighborhood. This STS translating to Vario Santos, right? And no, they have no connections to the Street Saints neighborhood because they use the same apparel and the same abbreviations, right? STS, Street Saints or Santos, right? So they just have the same colors, the same abbreviation, and the same logo that they use because these guys do use the New Orleans Saints gear, right? So that black and gold with the Saints logo, just like the Street Saints as well. They use that, they just have that in common, right? It's just coincidence and things, right? But unlike Street Saints, this neighborhood is not as old school, right? Because this Vario was only established, since the early 90s, mid 90s when this neighborhood was established. The Varios in the 661 Antelope Valley don't really, date that far back, as like some other areas, right? Because obviously this area hasn't even been around for that long. But yes, this is the place they call home, and handle their business. And this Vario, did gain, pretty good amount of heads to it, at least from what I was told, more than 65 members to them. And, have gave the area, hard time, have been hit with all kinds of, cases on them as well. Seems like they give law enforcement a hard time right here. So these individuals are with the business, homie, you know what I mean? Because I was seeing people, also put that as a fake gang and this and that. Like I said, you're just gonna have a bunch of haters on the internet, especially when it comes to this area. Is what I found in common that it tends to get a lot of hate, by individuals who never even been to the area or know nothing about the streets, yet they want to talk like they know. But this is a real Vario holding it down for there. Now, another Vario that you're able to find in this area, but is not actually from the area, right? This Vario actually comes from the Los Angeles area, which is known as the Vario HF, right? HF translating to Vario Hulen Family. Hulen Family is actually a neighborhood that resides in the south central portion of Los Angeles, the danger zone, the low bottoms. Obviously people that are aware with the area know that it cracks right there. And it's actually the birthplace of this barrio, right? But then, like I have said, they have homies that just moved and tend to establish in other locations. No different with this barrio, but essentially their territory is over there, what's on 55th Street and no, not C-Max, and Central Avenue to Slauson to Compton, and back to 55th. So everything that's in the middle, which is like 55th, 56th, 58th, all of that is what's considered the Vario over there, right? And they also have established right there in the Van Nuys area in the San Fernando Valley, and also here in the Palmdale area. So as a whole, this Vario is a lot more larger, right? Just because they're just spread out. And essentially the Vario in itself is not that old, right? Because they were tag bangers before, right? But that established themselves, and they also roam around right here in the Palmdale area, feuding with all the other Varros. Now, at least from what I was told, is in the Palmdale area, they're roughly only like around 10 to 12 members to them, so not that large, but still hold a presence. You see their activity and you see them doing their damn thing and representing for the Palmdale area. They have individuals that are proud to be repping in that side, so that's what's up with the Hulen family right there. Now, another Varro you have in this area, but is not, from this area, and I have already covered in the Santa Clarita portion, but I'll briefly mention it here, is the Varro VVP, Valverde Park. Valverde Park obviously is located in the Valverde portion of the Antelope Valley, but Ventura / Antelope Valley portion, but they are also located in the Palmdale area, right? They're Green Raggers, but they are homeboys. And right here in the Palmdale area, their territory, because they do have territory, is essentially everything that's from Avenue RA. Avenue RA, their turf extends to 40th, 42 Avenue S, all the way to 47th, back around. Everything in the middle and throughout 45th is considered their barrio, to the Valverde Park right here. And in the Palmdale area, I was told that there are a few dozen members to them. So they do hold a presence right here and represent for theirs. Like I said, as a whole, it's a lot more larger because Valverde in itself is a larger gang, right? But just with members spread out throughout the 661, because they even in Lancaster. But yes, this is a real Varro right here in Palmdale. They hold it down as well. Now, I am aware that you do have a Varro in the area that is known as the Varro LUK, right? It stands for Locked Out Criminals. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a hold of nobody from this barrio, right? To show me info and pictures and stuff like that, right? I tried to see if tap in, but I just wasn't able to get a hold of nobody from this neighborhood. So therefore, I don't speak on neighborhoods without talking to somebody from it first. So therefore, I have nothing to say about this neighborhood, but that it's a vital right there in the Palmdale area.